Hey, everybody, welcome to Self-Publishing Podcast. We had a rip-roaring discussion about what the hell this episode's called, but I think we decided it was getting your family's buy-in for your dreams, which is, you might subtitle that like how to keep your spouse and family from killing you.
Or how not to get divorced was Tammy's suggestion.
Or how to win your marriage.
In about a year from now, we'll follow up. Is divorce really that bad?
Yeah, Robin and I had a little bit of discussion about this because our wives got homework, and they will be weighing in via their homework. And I said to Robin yesterday, we were driving, and I said, you know, honestly, what would be a fantastic show, and I would love to do it, is to have our three wives on, but none of them would do it.
No,
none of the three of them would do it.
Yeah, that would be horrible for all of us, including you, because you would get to hear the sounds of pure discomfort. And actually, you guys might.
I was the missing Simon and Garfunkel's.
So
divorce
or Dave's home. The sounds of discomfort is what Dave's soundtrack is.
So
gastrointestinal discomfort.
I don't want to hear about your bowel movements anymore. Enough this week. All right. So
you know we were talking about that this week.
We weren't, but they all swim together. Like, so anything cool?
I guess I'll go.
Okay.
Something cool and something not cool at the same time. This week.
That sounds like your life.
Yeah, it's a balance. This week, my son got his first F on a quiz. He was absolutely devastated.
That is cool.
Crying. That's the cool thing. Yes, failure.
And what was the not cool thing?
Learn from the failure. He was devastated, and they do have a do-over quiz, so it might be erased. I don't know. Which I think that's bullshit, but whatever. But the cool thing is
we got to do over with Threshold.
That's true.
Sometimes you need to take your do-overs, man.
Now, I believe in second chances, but at the same time, like, I wanted him to learn from the failure, and if it doesn't count, maybe he won't adapt to the lesson. I don't know.
No, I totally hear you.
But the cool thing was he had a homework assignment that he was doing when we went out to eat last night. Before the food got there, he was doing homework.
It's just like Dad.
Yeah. I'm writing my book. He's doing his homework. So his homework assignment was actually one of my favorite assignments we rarely got in school. And I was so upset that we never got this because I was so good at it. Basically, the teacher will hand you like the first paragraph or a few of a story, and you write the rest of the story. So it's a creative writing exercise, and I loved those. And whenever I did those, I always wrote something that impressed everybody. So last night my son was writing one, and it's like the first time he's written like stories before, but they're always like kind of, they're like about sports or something, and they kind of just peter off, and they're kind of random events, not really a story. So this one he was writing at the table, and then he read it to us, and it was good. And I was like a proud moment. Like, wow, he grasped it, he did it, and did it well. And just like a cool moment to see him to write something. I don't know if he'll be a writer or wants to be a writer, but it was cool to see him do something that I like to do. So.
I will weigh in with something that I'm actually doing a quick turnaround here. It's kind of inspired by Dave's. And this is a different way than you normally inspire people, Dave. So you'll be pleased. Usually it's like inspired by a true story from hard copy or something. But this is, we have people right now, and this is, boy, I hope I'm not kind of stealing Sean's something cool, because this actually isn't it. But we do have people alpha testing Story Shop right now. And people are like, oh, this is really cool. This is really cool. Like we're looking forward to going into rollout. But he's snickering because I'll bet it was. Sorry, Sean. But mine is actually that I gave my son, Austin, access a while ago when we were pre-alpha, and because he's been asking about it. And he was like, oh yeah, I was using that for some school thing we were doing. And so he's like in there in school using Story Shop with, and his friends and developing characters and stuff for this project that they had to do. And so that was another proud moment for this end.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool, Sean, something cool.
Did I steal it? I didn't mean to. I wanted to talk about Austin, not Story Shop.
No, I'll actually tell you the whole story because it's kind of funny, and then I'll tell mine, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
So in Slack, I say to everybody, am I allowed to say that Story Shop is in alpha right now?
Oops. Yes, hopefully.
No, that's not how it went. And then I said,
why? Okay.
There's something related that I want to talk about as my something cool. So we got that going on. Oh man, hold on. Where'd it go?
Why would that not be okay? We've already talked about it's coming. And we were in there.
There's a reason.
Okay.
There's a reason. Because OMG, then we'll hear about it in questions and expected timelines. You can talk about using alpha, but not that other people are using it. I said, cool. Tammy says that makes sense. And then in all caps, Johnny, because it's right when you start talking about it. So,
but it's like Tammy. I mean, it's like internal, basically. It's not
right.
general public.
Right.
I want to be clear about that.
Here's the caveat on this. So it is awesome. Like we are looking at it, and we have a few people using it right now because that's what we need to make sure that it's stable. We don't want to promise any timelines because we want to make sure it's 100%, which it's really close. And then we'll give it to Kickstarters. But then once we give it to Kickstarters, there's going to be 600 plus people all using it at the same time. And so, stuff will break. But we're very, very close, and it's really, really awesome. So please, if you're listening to this, know that Story Shop is right around the corner. It's really, really awesome, but no deluge of questions because that's why we were avoiding talking about it. But it is awesome.
Episode back a week or so.
Well, it was awesome, and my something cool is that I got to use it in a way that I didn't think about, and it was just totally wonderful. So this morning I was story shopping, and I was story shopping a book
in the
that
tub?
no, just in the front room on my laptop actually. And
we should do a video all the places you can story shop and have like you in the tub.
I actually love that idea. I could do that. But I decided to just keep going until I didn't know what the character would do next, and then I would take a walk. And I've done this before, and I usually walk until I have a couple scenes in my head, and then I know I need to kind of empty them. So like if I want to do 3 scenes, I'll walk for 2 scenes and think of a scene on my way back, quickly record them when I get home. So I get 2 scenes in, and then I realize, wait a minute, I don't have to go home. Like I'm just going to go record this in Story Shop. And I pulled Story Shop up in my phone and used dictation to just put the different chapters in the beatboxes. And then I just kept walking for like another 40 minutes, filling in beatboxes. And it was so awesome. So I love
anyone else imagining Sean beatboxing.
I'm just so excited for this to be live and for other writers to be using it. And I can't believe I got to make up stories on my walk, and it went in the same outline structure that Johnny's going to see later. And this is the very first, I've done a few things where I'm moving stuff from old Scrivener files into Story Shop to see how it works. But the book I'm outlining right now is the first project that was born in Story Shop, and it's really fun. So anyway, that's my something cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so
the topic was brought to you by CM Raymond. I went into the Smarter Artist Facebook group, and I asked everybody for some suggestions for a show because we've done like a zillion shows already, and I figure it's about time to ask other people what they want. So that was his suggestion to talk about family.
Yeah, I love this too, because I think that, this is clearly something we can all talk about. Like we all have this experience, and I think it's a common thread among our audience that either you have the support of your spouse, or it's a big friction point in your life, right? Because if you don't have buy-in, that's really difficult. And if you do, then that can really grease it. But there are also, I think, varying levels of that, right? It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray in here too.
So continue, Dave.
Well, I'm actually looking for the exact thing, but since you turned to me, I can't. So Okay, wait, I found it. Okay. You guys have all talked about your partners, okay, wives, but I think a fabulous episode would be exploring, especially in retrospect, family and setting off as indie authors. I'm on the verge of going full-time, and my wife is supportive of my work, but she looks at my badass, amazing faculty job and says, why the hell would you leave? And I think that's one of those things. Like I'm probably gonna give different advice than Sean and Johnny here. I say hold on to that day job as long as you fucking can, especially for stuff like insurance, because given the political landscape right now, Obamacare, it's probably gone real soon, and people are going to find it very difficult to get and maintain insurance.
I hate that advice. And I know that, yeah, I know that there are spectrums here, but basically Dave said, go ahead, be miserable. And that's bullshit. Like, you need an exit plan. I don't think you should jump without looking. I think you should know how deep the pool is. I think you should be prepared and maybe have a life vest. But to never jump is like ridiculous. So what you need to do, like, let's say you hate your job, and let's say there's no way, like, you can't see an escape. So you have two choices: either stay like miserable all the time and say, I'm never going to do this. Or
misery does breed creativity, though.
Or you could just dream and say, I'll be a writer someday. But I'll be a writer someday turns into 5 years, and then 10 years, and then 20 years. And then you have a lot of regret. What you should do is say, you know what, this is going to take me 5 years. That's how long it's going to take. I just had a conversation with someone yesterday about this exact same subject. Look, if you have, here's your exit plan in 5 years. So think about everything you want to accomplish in 5 years, and then make the 1 year version of that. Like, what is the 1 year plan to get to your 5 year goal?
And I like what you've said a few times recently about most people underestimate, I don't remember the timeframes, overestimate how much they can do in, damn it, what is it, Sean?
I love this actually. It's most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10, which I completely agree with. In my first year, that's when I lost my house. I was like, I can do this, yeehaw, right? And now we're going into our 9th year, and like, I mean, I can't even imagine what is in store for like all of us for the next couple of years, because I never could have dreamed of this a decade ago, but I definitely had big dreams in that first year. It's a 5 year plan, and then break it down into smaller pieces.
So where do you want to begin on this?
Well, I keep not trying to take the mic, but Dave's not saying anything.
I think you're better at this than me, because my advice is obviously going to be different than yours. Well,
you should just be the MC. So here, I'll frame this, because Dave is clearly not doing his job today. All right. So he had to get up at 10:30, so he's totally beat.
Yes, I am exhausted.
All right. So so Dave asked the question on Facebook, and we got a lot of comments. And then Dave said, hey, can you ask your wives these questions? So I sit Cindy down and realize there's no questions here. They're more like statements of facts. And so I'm reading them, and we got a few comments. So I do have a few things that I can read from Cindy. But I think these are good discussion points. So if I don't have anything to add, or Johnny doesn't have anything to add, or Dave doesn't have anything to add, I think between all of these, we have a lot. But there's good discussion there. I think we do have different perspectives. I think Dave is all the way on the wrong end. I'm all the way on the other wrong end. And Johnny is probably firmly in the middle, because now here's the difference. Like,
I'm Goldilocks in that shit at all times.
I am crazy for myself. I'm not crazy for other people. I would never suggest somebody quit their job that I didn't think was equipped. I would never give anybody that advice ever. And in all the times I've been asked, I've never been given that advice. So what I would do is different than the advice that I would give, because I have a high threshold for risk and a partner who's 100% supportive. So that means that it's like Neo can bend the rules in the Matrix, because, right? I got a because there. So not everybody can do that. You have to decide what is best for you. But I think with you, Dave, you'll give people advice that's the same for you, regardless of what their situation or mindset is. And you have to get out of that and think, what is good for this person in this situation?
Well, I can see, but I mean, some of the comments I got in this are people like worried about insurance and stuff like that. So I tend to skew toward the more pragmatic, cautious side than, hey, let's just jump out into the waters and see what happens. Especially if you have a family and kids.
But I think that you make a plan accordingly. You know, you don't leap without looking. You don't fool. You know, you don't just jump without. That's exactly the same thing I just said. But you don't go without a plan. You say, you know, you can step into it. You can go. Some people can go part-time. Like for some people, it's not all or nothing. I know some people it is.
But that's what I mean, like a 5-year plan where you're like, look, all I have to do, like spend the first year. And the person I spoke to yesterday, this was exactly the advice. Like you can't, because a lot of indie authors go into that first year and they're like, I'm going to publish 6 books. I'm going to publish a book a month.
But did Sean just go muted for you, Dave?
No, I hear him.
Oh, I didn't hear that last bit. That's weird.
Oh yeah. I'm going to publish a book.
How stupid you are.
I'm going to publish a book a month and I'm going to be crazy and like, but they don't know how difficult it actually is to find the time to finish the books and get them properly edited, source the covers, all of that, just deal with the everyday fallout of what we do in our business. And so they drastically underperform and then they get discouraged and they're putting books out that they can't follow up. And it's preparing. So if you're saying, look, I'm going to do this very slowly because this is my dream. I don't want to be sitting here punching this clock in 5 years. That is unacceptable to me. You can't say, I'm going to do this in 6 months. Say, I mean, we know a few crazy people who have done that. Like Lori Starkey did it and she did it amazingly well. But I think it's certainly not the safest thing to do. If you say it's going to take me 5 years and this first year, all I'm going to do is focus on getting 3 books done because then I can go into market year 2 and actually have a platform. You can take it slow. It's much harder to just jump in.
And that allows you to adjust too. I don't know if you guys did this, but I know that because what you said is you get the 3 books or whatever. And I know just like I was planning on that shit. I was like, this book will make this much money and this book will make this much money. And then, and then in year 2, I can publish 3. Like it was like, I was counting on like royalties per a contract. And
you're imagining like iPad like necklaces for your dogs and stuff.
Well, no, I wasn't imagining like huge sums of money, but I was imagining it being more reliable than it is. So it'll actually work a little davishly, my favorite adverb, davishly. But it'll allow you to see like after a year, and you'd be like, okay, so at the beginning of the year, I was making all these plans that this book was going to continue spinning off that much. And it did or did not. And, maybe it'll take off and you'll be pleasantly surprised, but it'll allow you to kind of adjust and be like, okay, well, it didn't go exactly as I planned. And then you can adjust. Like acuity and adjustment is where you want to go with this, I think. And that gives you more information. Like right now, you may or may not have a realistic perception of what it is to be a full-time writer.
Right. And until you live it, how can you really make the proper decisions? If you were to decide I'm going to quit my job in 6 months and you don't really know what new job you're going into. And it is a job. Like, I mean, there's nobody who's publishing and then just like resting. And well, I mean, maybe there are a couple people, but that is just that's just not the way it normally happens. And that's not really what you can count on. And it does take time to become one of those authors anyway. So Dave, do you want to just start at the top with the first question or discussion point and we'll just kind of go through them?
The first question I have, I don't know if I have them in the same order, so you guys can figure it out.
That's helpful.
How do you balance getting stuff done around the house? Did you guys ask that question?
I did. Oh, okay. Of course, I asked all of them. Like,
okay. I can't remember what. So here's my wife's response, and it's gonna make me look horrible.
Dave does nothing.
Yeah, more or less. Seriously, I can't keep up with the OCD in me. Can't handle it. I'm teaching my 9-year-old how to do laundry and the dishwasher and take out the trash. Thankfully, David is tall, so he can step over the high piles of laundry.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm like the worst person to do this show.
I think
but at least she said something nice about your, ability to step over laundry that needs.
Yeah,
there's some good fuel here for our after show. Save this. Yeah. So basically,
Gabby said Dave tells her how to load the dishwasher. Yeah, I should be teaching my son how to do the dishwasher.
Yeah. So I don't have a specific quote from Cindy on this one, but we did talk about it a little and. Basically, like we have.
Well, your wife doesn't work. Mine does. So.
Yeah, we have roles in the house. So I mean, that's her job. Like, no disrespect whatsoever, but like, she wouldn't expect me to do things that are her job. In fact, she tells me not to. She actively says, no, like, I don't come in there and write. So she wants to feel like I did what I was supposed to.
See, we need to get my wife to not have a job, then she can do that and not expect me to do anything, which is the goal.
I have been encouraging this for a long time. Johnny, did you talk about this?
Well, I'm just trying to catch up because we didn't sit down and have a discussion. We just like she filled it out. So I'm trying to like catch up because it's paragraphs. Well, because I'm trying to see if she included. Okay, so she says, okay, so she actually did like a real formal job here. So do you just want me to read this out?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So she says, this is where communication becomes very important. If you are the stay-at-home writer and your spouse is working full-time, there's going to be a bit of you don't do anything in the other person's mind unless you communicate what you're responsible to handle and what you're responsible for when they get home. When Johnny started out on his own, I was working full-time outside of the house. He was the one that made dinner every night because it made more sense since I didn't get home until 6 o'clock. And by the way, this is fun because I've had no time all day, so I haven't previewed these at all. So I don't know what's coming.
Oh, I hope there's good stuff in here.
I know. When we had kids and I switched to working part-time, I started
making... It's terrible when you can't get it up.
When we had kids and I switched to working part-time, I started making dinner. He was making more money and working longer hours, so it made sense for us to make that change. You need to this is about halfway through, just so you can gauge. You need to talk things out and figure out who is responsible for what tasks. The person working from home needs to realize that they have more flexibility than someone working 9 to 5 outside of the home to do things like take kids to doctor's appointments or take the dog to the vet, i.e. things that usually can't be done evenings or weekends. The person working outside the home needs to realize that the writer is doing work and can't be expected to do everything just because they work from home. You need to be open with your spouse about expectations for sharing the household tasks, which is actually sort of the answer I would give. So yay, apparently we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, that's a really good, really thorough answer.
And for the record, Sean and Johnny did not assume my wife would like to do housework rather than the current job she has. She has said before she would gladly do that if we can afford for her to retire. She's got no problem with that.
Yeah, Robin actually volunteered because I did used to do all the cooking, and it's funny because it feels like a lifetime ago, but I did, and I actually like to cook when it isn't a have to situation. Like when you're cooking because dinner needs to be served at 6 and you got some, like then that's a pain in the ass for me. But if I can like enjoy it and I have time, which I don't currently feel like I have a lot of luxury on that, then I actually enjoy it. And so at one point she was like, why don't you just let me cook dinner? Because like you're running around, doing all this stuff. And she actively does not like to cook. So it was just sort of seeing what needs to be done. And it's a teamwork thing, I think.
Yeah, it is teamwork. And knowing what I like about Robin's answer is it basically is saying, look, we're in this together. It's fine if you do your part. It's fine as I do my part. But the better we understand what our parts are, the less friction we're going to have.
Or the more friction, depending on how you define it.
One piece of advice that I've given in the past, especially to authors with new children on the way, is finding a balance there. And one of the things I did do with my wife when my son was a toddler was basically if I needed alone time to get stuff done, then I would basically trade. Like, I'm sure there's something you want to do. Like if you want to, if you just want to be alone or you just want to go out with a friend or something, you do that. And, then I'll do my thing and kind of negotiate time. So you don't feel like you're always like on the hook. You're always having to do something, and you because you kind of feel guilty, especially when you have a young kid doing work. If your spouse is, having to watch the kid more often than not, you want it to be equitable. You want it to, so somebody doesn't feel like the burden is all on them. Although apparently I'm not very good at that on something.
Well, at least you understand it theoretically.
Another question. Were any of the wives not on board with the decision to start writing or go full time? I was happy David was following his dream. Some days it's hard to explain to your 9-year-old that even though daddy's technically home, he's not off of work. And the late writing nights, she's meal prepping or doing other stuff. I don't know what that has to do with anything. So yeah, I think I'm better about that. This past year, I've been better about that. Like when they get home, I spend time with them. Before there was like, I wouldn't even come out of my room sometimes, my office, because I was in the middle of something. I didn't want to break it up. But now I kind of, I'm much better about it, I think.
Yeah, there was never never hedging whatsoever on Cindy. I mean, she always encouraged me to do what I thought was awesome.
Robin's answer is prioritizing is important. It works well when Johnny schedules his writing time, which I do every day. That is a regular thing for me, because everyone knows that they are not to bother him during those hours. Nothing gets scheduled during those hours if possible. If you find that you just don't have the energy to clean the house, look into hiring a housekeeper to come in once a week to clean for a few hours. We've done this. You can find them at places like care.com for a minimal expense. If you don't like to cook, look into a meal delivery service or something similar. That was actually the tip that she gave about a housekeeper oversells it a little bit because it sounds a little like you have a maid. But I think once for like I don't know, just because I was trying to do something nice and not have us spend all weekend cleaning, I think I hired like one of those maid services once, and it was quite expensive. And I was like, well, fuck, this would have been great, but that's a lot of money. And then I think somebody suggested it, or we just looked, and on care.com, we found somebody who, she reminded me a little of Monica from Friends in that she kind of liked to clean, like there are those weird people out there. And I think she was just kind of like looking to kill her idle time. She had kids who were in school all day and she didn't work outside the house. And so it was $10 an hour. And it was just like
I'd be up on that shit all day.
Yeah, every single week she would come. It was great.
Next question. This is the last one I have. I don't know if you guys have more.
I have more after this.
Yeah, I have a ton. This is even the stuff she responded to.
Well, no, all of them, I had like a line, like the first part was questions. The other part, they didn't need to respond to. I thought that was understood. Anyway, do you have an agreement on writing hours? How do you manage the writer who writes overtime where it bleeds into other stuff? This one is pretty harsh.
Dave writes during dinners out.
I hate reading this. It makes me feel like an asshole. We get to have an agreement. No, we don't. His hours are always changing. I have learned to expect the unexpected. We don't usually make a lot of advanced plans. More like, so do you want to go to a movie?
Oh my God. I commiserate with her.
We don't take trips. If it's more than a few hours, I go alone. I've gotten used to making plans for me and our son that do not include David.
Wow. I love that you didn't edit that at all. Or maybe you did. I'd love to see the original.
No, I didn't.
Okay, yeah, I do have a quote from Cindy for this one. You can't watch a clock if the business is a living, breathing part of your household. Then it gets the oxygen when it needs it. That's not always convenient, but it is everybody's job.
I like that Cindy had really concise answers. They're very zen.
That is her.
That's her personality.
It is. And Robin is thorough. So like she was just like, well, shit, I guess I got homework. So and that's why she answered all the ones that Dave was like, well, it wasn't really a question. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll make it into a question. So here was her answer. I've always been supportive of Johnny doing what he enjoys doing. No one wants to be stuck in a job that they hate. There were times, especially during the real estate previous to him working full time, we lost a lot of money on real estate, that it was very hard to not say, get a real job. I was having anxiety attacks about money and it was awful. At one point, I did tell him that if he wasn't able to make X within the next 6 months, that he would need to get a job to supplement our income or we would risk losing our house. This was fun times.
Was this real estate time or writing time?
No, this was, they were both kind of going on at the same time. Like my income contributions while I was failing catastrophically at real estate investing was, writing and stuff. So It was a perfect storm. To his credit,
good old days.
Oh God. To his credit, he worked his butt off to make sure that didn't happen. luckily, writing is a very low overhead business. Unlike something like real estate, you tell there's a thorn here. There's very little liability, and it's pretty easy to predict income at least a few months in advance. I am a numbers-driven person who doesn't believe things until I see them. So
That's my wife too.
In getting used to the entrepreneurial environment. The PS on that is that Robin isn't also Sterling and Stone's CFO. And so, like, I was just like, okay, just so you know what business you're working for, just so you know.
I think we need that, though. Otherwise, I mean, Sean left to his own devices. Forget it.
Yeah, we all know I would spend this company into the ground.
But yeah, that was, and looking back, it is kind of shocking that she didn't suggest I get a job before. I mean, like, there were times, because she's just talking about, like, the point that she mentions where she said that she did give me the ultimatum was like 5 years past what any reasonable person would have given an ultimatum. Like, I really, really, really pushed her at that point. And
yeah,
so
you scratched the rubber band till it straight up snapped.
Oh, I really did. And so the fact that she, like, looking back, that she, it's not that she didn't say it. It's not that she didn't make the ultimatum. She literally, I wasn't aware it was even a possibility. Like, it wasn't out there hovering. You know, she didn't mention it at all. And that's really kind of crazy in a good way.
So we had a comment here. You guys might have had that as a question. I don't know. But Adam J. Williams weighed in saying, I quit my job in September 2015 to stay at home and be a full-time writer. Quitting was a culmination of a 2-year plan that attempted to make the transition as smooth as possible. I worked overtime and sold plasma to pay off our student loans. That's commitment there.
Wow.
That is commitment.
Cars and other debt except the mortgage. Despite the meticulous planning leading up to my writing career, I had no work in progress and no other plans besides writing short stories and submitting them to paid markets. We did, however, establish a firm set of rules for me if I was going to be home all day. First, I was supposed to approach writing seriously. There would not be any chores or honey-do list items to take care of while I was home. The second was that my workday ended at 3 when my kids got out of school. After 3, it was my job to be a dad. This is when I volunteered for activities with my children and helped them with their homework. The third was that dinner should be on the table when my wife got home from work. This wasn't a chore, as I enjoy cooking, and it evolved into another activity to do with my children. Finally, I was given a year-long lease to make things happen. For my first month, I set a challenge for myself that I would write a short story a day. After my first month, I built a decent catalog of stories to send out, but quickly grew frustrated with the lack of control I had in my own writing career. That's when I decided to self-publish. My first half of my year-long lease progressed slowly, but it evolved quickly. I formed an LLC with a partner and found several collaborators. In 2016, I released 6 titles, 4 of them in the last quarter. The growth that was shown by my forming a plan and ultimately production was enough to earn me a second year. While I do wish I had a more solid plan when I started, the fact that I didn't have a fallback plan led me to where I am today. I painted myself into a corner and had to figure out a creative way to get out. There's nothing wrong with being scared because it kept me from being complacent.
That's true. That was whose was that?
Hold on, let me go back to the page. That was Adam J. Williams.
Wait, you got to finish that, dude, because it finishes strong.
Oh, because he mentioned you. My wife is.
You can, fucker. You can get rid of the last sentence, but the wife is
my wife is not my target reader, but she is a person that I feel like I have the most to prove to. She's a stabilizing rock to the whims of my imagination that I follow. I think
stop there.
I think that Sean may be my spiritual animal.
Okay. The thing
Sean is so sexy.
Because I was scrolled. So.
Oh yeah, no. There's a couple of really good points there. I mean, having to prove, like, I'm the same way. Like, Cindy is not my target reader at all, but she is the person who I totally talk to. She's the person that I totally. I'm writing to her because I'm proving it to her. Like, look, we're gonna make this all worth it. Like, I want her to celebrate my ideas. I want her to think, wow, this is awesome. So even though she's not necessarily the person who would buy my stuff in the wild, she is who I'm trying to prove it to. So I totally get that. But I think the bigger point here is that, Adam was successful when he had a plan. And I think that going out there helter-skelter is the wrong thing to do. But if you're expecting your spouse to support you, then you need to present them with a reason. You need to give them, here is my plan. Here's what I'm going to do. Not, do you trust me to just go make it all happen? But here's my actual plan. Now, to be clear, I didn't go to Cindy with a plan. I said, trust me to make it happen. But that's the wrong thing to do. If you really want your spouse's buy-in, you should go and tell them why they should trust you.
Robin's funny because she even answered that one. She just said, yeah, sounds like you did a good job. She was like, I'm answering everything. All right. Oh, do we not have the others then? I have more on this.
No, I have more. I have.
Okay,
I don't have the questions.
My wife didn't weigh in on any more, so because I only gave her the ones that thought looked like questions.
Okay, so I have more. Becky says, when you have a spouse who totally supports you writing financially, time-wise, and in story material, what is the best way to softly reject their plot twist ideas when they don't fit the structure of your story?
Sorry, who was that?
Really?
That was Becky?
Yeah, Becky.
Okay.
Yeah, like Cindy doesn't really suggest plot twists. She's more of a very patient listener. So, yeah. How about you guys? Anything?
Yeah, I don't show my wife the story until it's done. So there's really, like, sometimes I'll ask her a question about something, like if it's regarded as something I think she has a knowledge of, or I might ask what she thinks of names, but not really plot twists.
Yeah, Cindy would never comment on a plot. Like I talk to her all the time. Like the thing that I'm doing right now, I'm pretty excited about. So I was telling her all about it. And she'll ask clarifying questions sometimes that are great because then it'll set me on a different path. It's like, I mean, that's why collaboration is so fun, because it prompts a lot of questions. So, but no, I don't think she would ever suggest something like that. Anyway, okay, so the next one.
Do you want ours?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's short. Rob, she said, I don't give plot or writing advice. I've read most of Johnny's books and will be honest whether I like them or not, but I stay out of the creative process.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer.
Sam Witt had a comment. I'm considering making this leap myself, but there's one area that has my spouse tied in, and that's insurance, what we talked about. We don't have any little kids, but we do have 2 in their late teens. Neither of us are in our tender youth either, so the chance of going awry is higher rather than lower with every passing year. Right now, I've got good benefits through the accursed day job, good enough that I'd have to make a small fortune to have some kind of coverage as a self-insured business person. This is a sore subject and really the only thing that's keeping me from making the leap.
Okay, so I have a couple thoughts on here. This is
Tammy says advice: move to Canada or Finland. I agree wholeheartedly.
No, I think I don't think you can. I don't think you can do without the health insurance, but I think you can build a plan and say, okay, well, here's the threshold, like an acceptable amount. Like maybe there's I don't know, $300 a month difference between where you need to be and, like what's acceptable, like a $300 pinch, right? Then once you're there, you may not have all of your health insurance covered, but you can clearly look on a calendar, look at your data and say, okay, well, if we keep doing this, we're going to be able to cover this in, 3 months or whatever it is, because then you have more time to produce, which means you can get more product, which means you can make more money. So there comes a point where the math is just upside down, where you're not actually saving money by getting your insurance paid for your job. So don't jump into it, but absolutely.
Robin says, insurance sucks. We've been dealing with insurance issues for years and it never gets easier. This is something that will be different for everyone since everyone's situations are different. I would recommend talking to an insurance broker and an accountant. The broker will give you all of the options for all of the different companies that offer individual policies. There should be no fee if you talk to your broker. They get paid by the insurance companies. She recently did this for us, by the way. They can help you figure out your best options and give you an accurate idea of what the cost would be to carry it yourself. Of course, with the ACA being dismantled, things are in a bit of limbo. Nobody really knows what the cost will be next year. An accountant can help you in that with certain business structures, insurance can either be paid by your company and deducted as a business expense or deducted directly from your taxes as a self-employed health insurance deduction. This helps offset a little bit of the damage. I definitely wouldn't recommend quitting your day job until you know what your cost will be and if you have room in your budget or are making enough off of your writing already to cover it.
One of the things that probably should be part of this conversation is how do you plan how do you plan, like, let's say you're making a lot of your money on KDP Select. How do you plan when that is something that could go away?
Well, what I would do is just put a lot away. I mean, it depends, because right now we're not individual authors, so we don't behave like individual authors. We behave as a company. But if I was just publishing by myself, which is I think the case for the majority of the people who are listening to this, and I was making a lot of money on KDP Select, I would be putting like 70% away, because I know that that shit wouldn't last. So
Yeah.
you know, I'd put it away and then I'd reevaluate, you know, as soon as I needed to. But I'd be building this, you know, the money bin for my business. Just put it in a coffer, let it stack up, because I wouldn't bank on the fact that that would be there.
Yeah, and at the risk of beating an already very dead horse, this is one of the reasons that I hate exclusivity. Like, I know that it's very good for some people. You just have to plan. Like Sean said, you have to put a lot more, you have to put more away when your position is precarious. But businesses, like, you're not just an artist. You're not just like just a writer. You are a small business of one person in a lot of cases. And so you need to act like a business, and just all your eggs in one basket, I just hate as a business proposition. But if you're in that situation, you just need to plan accordingly.
Yeah, here's a general comment. I don't know actually what specific question or statement this is to, but it's from Cindy. She says, you can't be halfway, because then you get nowhere. Vows mean for better or worse. If Sean is all in, then I'm all in, because dreams deserve to happen.
Lucky bastard.
I have two more answers, but I don't know what they're
Come off so
questions
good
to.
in this damn thing. Danielle Corley said, my husband has been self-employed since 97. As a business owner, it's sometimes difficult to say office hours are over, we're closed. This is especially true when the phone blows up and emails are pouring in for customer service after hours. Writing is a different business. Question for the spouses, families, or full-time writers. Do you have an agreement about writing hours? Sometimes a person gets into a really good writing rhythm, and it's hard to shut that down at a certain time on the clock. It's easy for families of business owners to feel like the business comes first and they come second. It's easy to think that maybe the writer's using excuses to avoid family time. So how do you manage a writer who writes overtime but doesn't get paid? I think that's kind of the question that I had summed up earlier.
Yeah, this is the same one. This is the one that I had. You can't watch a clock if the business is a living, breathing part of your household.
I have a separate answer for this one. It says, Robin noted that this was Danielle's and the question below hers, so which might have been the one that you mentioned. She says, again, Johnny is really disciplined about his writing time, and we as a family try to respect that time. If the kids are home during that time, they know not to be loud or bother Dad in his office. We don't schedule activities or events during that time. That being said, his business is not just writing. He has meetings and podcasts and other work to fit in during the day. He does a good job of trying to keep sensible business hours as much as possible, but sometimes things pop up. I understand that that is just part of being an entrepreneur. There are trade-offs. He gets to be working from home all the time and really ends up spending more time with the family than most people who work 9 to 5. You just have to be flexible. For me, if the calendar can be set up in advance, I have no issues with things going late or spilling over into weekends. I'm not as happy with things that just pop up.
Okay, so this one is from Dan Wilcox. How do you reassure your partner that it's not just a stupid hobby and you're taking everything as seriously as possible to create a better life, even when things are tight as hell? And I do have a quote from Cindy here, and I'm going to read the whole thing verbatim because it's funny. All right. So she says, it's not in what you say, it's in what you do. Show your work and communicate clearly. You're making fire with 2 sticks, not striking a lighter. But she needs to see you rubbing those sticks. And it's better if you're rubbing your sticks together. Sean, don't say it like that. Oh my God. Because she knew what I was going to do or suspected what I would do with that. So that's her whole quote.
Robin said, for me being a numbers person, the best way to reassure me of how things are going is to show me numbers. And I'll add as a caveat.
Show me the money.
At the beginning, it involved hiding some numbers or obscuring, let's say, some numbers. I did do some of that too. Share sales numbers.
Your wife. Okay.
just a little. Share sales numbers and royalty numbers. I've always done the books for Johnny's business, so I've always had that insight, which has really helped me to keep the faith that things were headed in the right direction. It is hard having blind trust in a new venture. So I think that sharing some insight on good things that are happening will help. Even if your partner isn't a numbers person, just share some small victories or progress that you've made.
Yeah. Okay. So I think a really, really great takeaway here is that, look, everybody's different. Your relationship with your spouse is different. Your relationship with your children is different. And like, I strongly don't feel that children should all be raised the same way. Like, even within my household, I raise Ethan differently than I raise Haley because they're different people. So they respond to things differently. And you have to know who your spouse is and the best way to communicate with that person and know what their currency is. So for example, during the most tumultuous times, I couldn't make Cindy feel safe financially. Like, that wasn't possible. We didn't have any money. I was writing $5 SEO articles. We were losing our house. So like, there was no way for me to, like, unless I was bald-faced lying to her, I couldn't make her feel safe financially, but I could make her feel safe in other ways. I could make her feel like cared for and protected, and that I had my head in the game and I was going to figure this out. And that's what a spouse wants to know, is that you're not jeopardizing your future. You're not being careless. It's not like I was taking, I mean, she says if Sean's all in, I'm all in, but that would change if I said, hey honey, like, we have this $10,000 and I've got a dog I just know is going to win. Like, that would be a problem. And she would put her foot down and she would say no. But as long as I have a plan, even if my plan fails, if I have a plan, that's okay. Like, I'm telling her what my plan is. And yeah, I think up stuff that doesn't work all the time, but the stuff that works more often than it doesn't. And at this point, she's fine with the ratio, but it was really scary there for a while. And I think that the best thing is to make her feel safe in the ways that I was able to make her feel safe. And I think that's the universal truth for everybody. So if your spouse is really concerned about the actual bottom line, then make them feel safe that this doesn't have to happen in 2 months or 3 months. This is a long thing that you're thinking about, and you're going to plan it out over 3 or 4 or 5 years. But just so you know, this is where I want to go. And I'm not going to do it so fast that you're going to feel unsafe, but just know it's going to happen. If your spouse fears the uncertainty more than anything, then tell them what your plans are. Just include them in the process. I think a lot of creative people too, they keep their dreams internal. It's something they think about, but they don't want to express it. They don't want to articulate to their spouse because they don't think they're going to get buy-in, or they're worried about judgment or whatever. But you're never going to get where you're going if you don't clear your throat and ask.
So communication.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I think that's the key to any good relationship, for sure. So of course, start there. I mean, clearly communicate what you need and what you are hoping for, like your ambitions, and what your partner can do to support those, and then what you can do to support your partner.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Well, looking at my wife's answers last night when she wrote them, it was a bit of an awakening for me. Like I didn't know, like, I can tell how annoyed she is by certain aspects of this situation. And I guess I was kind of ignoring it for a while, and I have to figure out a way to address that to make it work better. And I suppose that would have been solved had I communicated with my wife more about these things.
Yeah, I always like to have a target. It almost doesn't matter what the target is. And so I would ask questions like, what will it take before you're comfortable in this way? Any answer is okay. Like, if the answer is, I currently make $2,000 a month and I need to make $6,000, if it's 3 times as much, that's still an answer. It gives me something to shoot at. There was a lot of that. Like, what are your specific concerns? What can I do? Because not everybody's the same. And if you assume that, like, there are plenty of spouses, like mine is not one of them, but there are plenty of spouses where you might you might make a lot of money in your writing, and that actually isn't what it was even bothering them. Like, it might be like, I don't know, security of knowing you have a job, or prestige. Like, there are people where, they're used to the prestige of a job. Like, my spouse was XYZ of such and such. Like, there are those people. So you just have to know what it is that actually, might concern them.
My spouse is a self-published author.
I think one thing also to really keep in mind is that whatever upsets your spouse, like whatever that is, don't minimize it. Like even if you think it's no big deal, like maybe you're actually doing really well. You're making maybe 5 figures a month is coming in, and your spouse is still like a little uncertain, because you're leaving security for a very uncertain thing. And even if the money is good, even if you have 5 figures coming in a month and they change select next month, you could be out of a job, like essentially. And you just you just told your boss to go fuck himself. Like that's a problem, right? So you can't say, but we're doing so well, like you don't believe in me. Like that's so not the way to get what you want in that situation. What you want to do is communicate and say, you know what, like I understand why you're feeling this way. Like it's not secure. KDP Select could go away tomorrow. What would make you feel safe? What can we do? Because I would really like to pursue this dream, but I also want you to feel safe. So how do we make that happen? You can't steamroll over your spouse and then say they don't understand me, they don't support me. Like it's a partnership and it's communication.
Yeah, try not to say you're wrong to feel that way. You're stupid.
Yeah.
I would suggest not saying that.
That would be a mistake.
So so good. That was a fun episode. I will conclude with the ad read that I did not give in the beginning, which is we wanted to make sure you guys know about Story Jackets and Story Garter, which is now its fully fledged thing with its own page on the website, which I hadn't seen before, but I went and looked, and it's fun times. If you're in the stage where you're creating a draft and you don't have a collaborator, or you want an expert eye on your story before you actually spend a bunch of time writing it and then have to be saved by a developmental editor because your story doesn't make any damn sense, consider a Story Jacket. And that would be at sterlingandstone.net/storyjacket, or the romance version for you romance people is called a Story Garter, sterlingandstone.net/storygarter. Check them out. And I guess that's it. So we'll see.
Book recommendation, Amy.
Yeah. So before we go, we can recommend the book For Better or Work. It's for
better or for work. Just for clarification on that.
For better or for work. Yeah. And it's about being married to an entrepreneur. And so if you're selling your art, you are an entrepreneur. If you're an indie, you're an entrepreneur. And that's just we got the recommendation from our friend Danny, who is just on it. He's an entrepreneur, and his wife is his CFO because they have some of these things. And the way he described it to us was, it's like for entrepreneurs, we're driving in the driver's seat and we're like, woo, this is awesome. And we're going around all these curves on the mountain road and we're having so much fun and our hair's down. And we turn to our right and we see that the passenger's there just like getting, like she's not wearing a seatbelt, she's getting like knocked all around the cabin. And that's not fun for our spouse.
And terrified would be the way, because I think that I would compare living with me during my experiments in entrepreneurism and so forth to be a lot like riding on the back of a motorcycle, being scared shitless.
Yeah.
With no control.
And I know Cindy and I know Robin, and these are both of these people are not designed to deal with uncertainty. So it's just so against their grain. And yet we have, not forced them, that's not the right word, but they've
prisoners of fortune.
Yeah, to go along with it. And so it's good, at least if you understand what they're going from, it does make you a lot more empathetic to it.
All right. So thank you for listening to Self-Publishing Podcast, and we'll see you next time. So we just stay on, right?
We're still recording.
Yeah. Well, we're not supposed to be. I just tried to stop that.